Great news for the LA Kings as they closed out the regular season with a stinker. Details on that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. I'm also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly podcast and YouTube show wrapping up the night in the NHL. New episode out right now. And a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, the LA Kings played their final game of the regular season, game 82 of the season, back on home ice after a quick two-game road trip to face the Calgary Flames. LA was coming off a 6-5 win in Seattle on Tuesday. This game, just like the last game, had zero significance as far as a playoff race for either team. Calgary had been eliminated a couple of days earlier from the wild card race. There was a lot of lineup changes going on for the LA Kings, but the big news going into this game, Quinton Byfield in the lineup for the LA Kings. So that puts to bed the question, the fear that he might not be available for the start of the playoffs. So great news for the LA Kings. Also back, defenseman Joel Edmondson, who had missed the previous 5 games with an upper body injury. So the Kings entered this game with a 49-24-9 overall record. The 48 wins tied with the 2015-16 Kings for the most wins in franchise history. The 105 points tied with the 1974-75 Kings for the most points in franchise history. So 1 win and 1 point would set new franchise records for wins in a season and points in a season. The injury news other than Quinton Byfield and Joel Edmondson, Kings forward Tanner Jeannot missing his 12th straight game with a lower body injury. And again, he is not going to be ready for the start of the playoffs. Hopefully the Kings can be around long enough that he might be able to join them at some point. Once again, with home ice secured, this game by all accounts was a meaningless game for the most part, at least meaningless as far as any kind of repercussions for either team. And because of that, there were several Kings once again given the night off, including Adrian Kempe, Phillip Danault, and Trevor Moore. The Kings made one roster move on Thursday. They called up forward Taylor Ward from the AHL. He was going to make his NHL debut. As far as the lineup in this one for the Kings, it looks very different than what we're used to. Andrei Kopitar would be back at center on the top line. Warren Foegele would join him on one of the wings, as I think head coach Jim Hiller wanted to reward Warren for a great season and how he's played of late. Andrei Kuzmenko would be on the top line as well. So Warren Foegele in for Adrian Kempe. The second line was basically the third line, moved up to the second line. Quinton Byfield again back in the lineup, centering Kevin Fiala and Alex Laferriere. The third line would have Alex Turcotte at center. He would be centering Jeff Malott and Akil Thomas again, Phillip Danault and Trevor Moore out of the lineup. The fourth line would have Samuel Helenius at center with Taylor Ward on one wing and Trevor Lewis on the other. As far as the defensive pairings, Mikey Anderson and Drew Doughty on the top pairing, back after having the previous game off. Second pairing of Vladislav Gavrikov and Jordan Spence. Third pairing of Joel Edmondson back, along with Brant Clark. Jacob Moverar and Kyle Burrows were the healthy scratches. In net would be David Riddick starting his second game in a row. Darcy Kemper getting the rest for the playoffs would be the backup. The big question for me going into this game was, how would Quinton Byfield look? Would he look normal? Would you see any difference? Would he be hesitant at all? Would he be able to play the whole game? And of course, just like the last game for the Kings, avoid anything that could affect them in the playoffs. No injuries and nothing that could lead to a possible suspension. As for the scoring summary in this one, no goals scored in the first period. Second period, Calgary took a 1-0 lead. In the third, the Flames would score 3 goals in the span of about 4 minutes, and that was pretty much the game. Now, LA would avoid being shut out thanks to the first NHL goal by Taylor Ward. Coming up, we'll have more on that in a little bit. So the Kings, with the loss, fall to 48, 25-9 overall, 31, 6-4 on home ice. Their 4-game winning streak comes to an end. Again, the Kings do not break the record for wins and most points in a season. Instead, they will have to settle for being tied for the most wins and most points in a single season in Kings franchise history. As for the game stats in this one, Kings lose 5-1. LA actually outshot Calgary slightly, 31-29. Special teams actually favored the Kings. LA 1 for 3 on the power play. Calgary was 0 for 2. Faceoffs favored the Flames 29-23. Hits favored the Kings 19-15. Block shots favored Calgary 11-7. So it was not so good for the Kings from a team standpoint. Well, they did not start very well. It was not a clean first period at all. Perhaps not surprising considering all of the roster shuffling around. And there were certainly some defensive issues in the third period. What was good for the Kings from a team standpoint? Well, we'll talk about the individuals coming up, but I thought the Kings actually looked a lot better in the second and third periods, except for about 4 minutes in the third period, than they did in the first period. So they got better as the game went along. The power play, I thought, looked actually very good. The puck movement was great. They did everything well except finish, which is, of course, the most important part. But I actually thought they looked really good on the power play. Now, with the lineup changes, it looked a little bit different. Drew Doughty was back at the point, but Quinton Byfield was still a part of the number one power play unit because Adrian Kempe was out of the lineup. So again, we'll have to wait and see what Jim Miller decides to do once the playoffs start. Will he stick with that 5-forward top power play unit? Or maybe he could even be something that's situationally. We'll just have to wait and see how that goes. As far as the coach's quote, Jim Miller talking about what is next between now and game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs for the Kings. And we'll give you the full schedule of the playoffs for the Kings coming up. He said, quote, "We can take a day off and just get away from it all. Get the relief. That's what we're talking about. Then 2 good days of practice. I think that's important. We'll have one day where we focus on some Edmonton stuff, and then one day where we just go, and then the marathon starts all over again. I don't mind this. I don't mind 3 days. I think we can use a break," end quote. So that was head coach Jim Miller talking about what is going on between now and the start of the playoffs, which is coming up on Monday. We'll give you the full schedule in a bit. As far as my big takeaway from this game, the big takeaway is Quinton Byfield. How did he look? We'll get more into detail coming up in just a bit, but he looked good. That's the overall big takeaway from this game. Other than that, to be honest, I don't really take much away from this game at all. I mean, you had a jumbled lineup in a game that meant nothing. The Kings didn't lay down in this game, but once the Flames had that little 3-goal burst, it was like, okay, this is over. Let's just get it over with. Everybody stay healthy and move on. It felt a lot like a preseason game as far as like the intensity and just the players that were in the lineup. And again, this game to me doesn't mean anything going forward at all. Yeah, it wasn't a great performance of the Kings, but again, nothing to be gained here other than Quinton Byfield and seeing how he looked. And also Taylor Ward, which we will get into more again in just a minute, which actually we'll get into coming up right now. We're going to get into some of the individuals in this loss to the Calgary Flames. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite teams or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel is so many ways that you can bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. LA has 2 teams in the playoffs as the Lakers are facing the Timberwolves and the Clippers take on the Nuggets. Make those games more exciting and fun by using FanDuel to wager on the NBA playoff excitement. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, let's talk about some of the individual performances in the loss to the Calgary Flames. We'll start with the goaltender David Rittich. The Kings were not great in the first period, but Rittich, I thought, actually had some solid saves. As far as the goals he allowed, the one goal he allowed in the second period, a wraparound scoring move by Nazem Kadri, the leading goal scorer for the Calgary Flames. It looked like Rittich didn't quite do a very good job of hugging the left post as he was moving from his right to his left, and there was the wraparound move around the back of the net. Second goal was on a 3-on-2. Shot ends up coming from a player right at the doorstep and into the net. Third goal was a one-timer with Rittich trying to move from his right to his left. Mikey Anderson took a risk. He tried to dive and take the pass away instead of playing the passer and letting Rittich take the shooter. Pass went over Anderson's body and was right there for Nazem Kadri to score his second goal of the game. That one was no way that Rittich was going to stop that one. The fourth goal was a deflection by him, and then the fifth goal, just a nice shot from the right corner into the net. Maybe Rittich was off his angle a little bit on that one as it was shot kind of across his body over his left shoulder and into the net. It was a nice shot, but maybe if he comes out a little more, maybe he cuts down the angle and makes the save. In the end, David Rittich allowed 5 goals on 29 shots. Second straight game, he's allowed 5 goals as he falls to 16, 14, and 2 on the season. As far as David Rittich going into the postseason, if he plays any significant time, the Kings are going to be in big trouble. If there's an injury to Darcy Kemper, maybe Rittich could play a game if there's some minor injury or something like that. But I mean, Darcy Kemper is clearly the number one without any doubt whatsoever. And he's one of the big advantages the Kings should have in the series against the Oilers. So David Rittich is there in case of an emergency. But again, if he were to have to play any length of time, that would spell doom, I think, for the Kings. All right, let's get into Quinton Byfield. And I thought he looked completely fine in this game. He showed no signs whatsoever that he won't be ready to go and be the player he's been for most of the season in game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. He led all forwards in ice time with 19 minutes and 27 seconds. That was the third most minutes played in the entire game, behind only Drew Doughty and Mikey Anderson. He almost tied the game up on a beautiful move. He cut into the center of the ice, kind of using the defender as a screen, and fired a wrist shot off the crossbar. He had another chance to tie it up with a rebound attempt from the slot on the power play. Bottom line, though, our worst fears were not realized with Quinton Byfield, as he looks like he will be absolutely ready to go in game 1. Hallelujah for that. And while I was absolutely thrilled to see Q on the ice, I don't know that I would have played him in this situation unless he absolutely convinced me he had to have a game to be 100% ready to go for the opening of the playoffs. And then even still, I'm not sure I would have done it. I would have risked it. Clearly, the training staff and the medical staff signed off on it, so they're not going to risk him unless they think he's 100%. So again, bottom line, he looked good, and relieved that Quinton Byfield is okay, because he's going to be, and he's going to need to be, an important part of the Kings in the playoffs. And as far as Joel Edmondson, I thought he looked fine as well. Returning to the lineup, he played 18 minutes and 37 seconds. Unfortunately, he was a -2 in the game, as all of the Kings defenders were a minus in this one. Kevin Fiala, I am still scratching my head on exactly how Kevin didn't score at least 1 goal, maybe 2 in this one. He had multiple good chances, especially a couple of one-timers on the power play, and somehow it just did not get into the net. I thought he looked really good in this game, had a 2-on-1 with Quinton Byfield that he almost scored on. But again, the one-timer was looking good, but just could not get it in the net in this game. Taylor Ward, other than Quinton Byfield, was the other big story of this one. So I mentioned, called up from the Ontario Reign earlier in the day, makes his NHL debut, 27-year-old rookie, played 4 years at the University of Nebraska Omaha, or UNO as they like to call it. Also spent parts of the last 4 years in the AHL with the Ontario Reign. This season, a career high 12 goals and 26 points in 65 games. To be sure, again, this was probably the highlight of his career. At least, an NHL highlight for sure. It's probably going to be the only goal he scores in his NHL career, to be totally honest with you. Maybe the only game he plays in his NHL career. Again, he is a AHL guy. He's there for depth, but mostly to provide some scoring at the AHL level. Awesome the Kings would give him this opportunity to come up, because we're resting some guys Otherwise, it's probably not going to be an opportunity for him to get to play, but it was awesome that he did, and even better that he was able to get a goal in this one. First goal of his NHL career. He joins Samuel Hellenius and Andre Lee as Kings to score their first NHL goal of the seasons. There's so many great scenes with Taylor Ward in this one. And the NHL and hockey has a lot of cool traditions. One of them is the rookie lap. So Taylor Ward got to go out on the warm-up before everybody else take his lap. Calgary actually had, I believe, 4 players making their NHL debuts. I didn't see it, so I don't know if they all 4 skated their rookie lap together. And by the way, the Flames had 2 rookies score goals in their first ever NHL games, just like Taylor Ward did. It's just the 5th time since the late 60s in the expansion era that 3 players all scored goals in a game in their NHL debuts. For Taylor Ward, you may or may not know, he is the son of a former NHL player and a former LA King in Dixon Ward. And I'm pretty sure I heard on the broadcast that Taylor and Dixon are the first father-son combo to ever play for the LA Kings. Now, you may not remember Dixon. I remember him best as a Buffalo Sabre. He played a few years in the NHL. He had some stints with the Canucks and the Maple Leafs and the Rangers, but he played 34 games for the LA Kings in the 1993-94 season, but he had multiple seasons where he played for the Buffalo Sabres. But again, really awesome scene in this one. After Taylor Ward scored, the cameras knew exactly where Dixon Ward was with his wife, and I believe it was with Taylor's grandfather. And Dixon Ward, tears in his eyes as he looked on in disbelief that his son had finally scored an NHL goal, hugging his wife. And those things are so awesome to see. They showed the Calgary players as well, and their families were all celebrating. But again, other than Quinton Byfield, Taylor Ward getting his first career NHL goal, and what may very well be his highlight, his one thing he always remembers. He made it to the NHL, and he scored a goal, and they can never take that away from him. Checking the team leaders in the loss to Calgary, Taylor Ward, the lone goal. Brant Clark and Jordan Spence had the assists. Kevin Fiala led the team with 5 shots on goal. Sammy Hellenius led the Kings in hits with 5. Andrei Kuzmenko had 2 blocked shots. Also, unfortunately, was a -4 in this game. Drew Doughty led the Kings in ice time, 22 minutes, 32 seconds. And Alex Turcotte led the Kings in the faceoff circle, winning 9 of 12 faceoffs, 75%. So good job for Alex. As for the Taylor Ward goal, I didn't even describe it, but Jordan Spence put a point shot on net, and he was right there perfectly in front for the rebound to put it home for the only goal of the Kings' loss. All right, coming up next, we have the complete playoff schedule. We'll also check on some Kings prospects as well. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick for 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Plus Ultimate with EA Play included, and you'll be ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV shows from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. I'm old enough to remember when video games first started, and I still love playing video games. I love EA NHL, college football too. I am absolutely horrible at Call of Duty, but Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On is where you go to get started. Again, Amazon.com, Fire TV Locked On, get you started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Well, the playoff schedule is out. I kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit, but the LA Kings are going to play their first 2 games at home. Game 1 will be on Monday, and Game 2 will be on Wednesday. And for those of you that might have been worried a little bit about conflicts with the Easter Sunday holiday, you don't have to worry. Again, game 1 will be Monday. Game 2 will be Wednesday. Originally thought that the Kings would play on the Easter Sunday, but that's not the case. So that's good for me as I get to enjoy some family time as well. And then game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs on Monday. Now, game 3 will be in Edmonton. That's on Friday. Game 4 also in Edmonton next Sunday. If necessary, game 5 would be the following Tuesday in LA. Game 6, if necessary, in Edmonton on Thursday. That's May the 1st. And if necessary, a game 7 would be in Los Angeles on Saturday, May the 3rd. The LA Kings announced their award winners for this season. I got to vote in this as well. I'm going to tell you who won and who I voted for. The team MVP for the LA Kings, I don't think much of a surprise here. Goaltender Darcy Kuemper. This one was fairly obvious, although I think Vladislav Gavrikov was a legitimate contender. For the way he played in place of the injured Drew Doughty this year. I think Warren Foegele could have gotten a mention for his steady play all season long. And you got to put Adrian Kempe in there for leading the team in points and being second on the team in goals. I, though, voted for Darcy Kuemper as the Kings MVP. The top newcomer of the year, I thought this was a pretty easy one as well. Although I guess maybe you could have voted for Darcy Kuemper. I mean, he did have a previous stint with the Kings, but I don't think that's how this works. I think it's what player in his first year with the team this year was the most impactful. So Darcy Kuemper certainly could have won this as well. I voted for Warren Foegele. Warren Foegele won the award, set career highs in goals with 24 and points with 46, played in all 82 games for the Kings and led the Kings in game-winning goals with 7. Again, Darcy Kuemper could have certainly won this award. I don't like voting for the same player for multiple awards if I don't have to. So I thought the top newcomer of the year was Warren Foegele, and apparently the rest of the media folks agreed with me on that one. Outstanding defenseman. I voted for Vladislav Gavrikov, and he also was the winner of this award. We talked about it all season long, how valuable he was, moving from the left side to the right side, taking over for Drew Doughty, and playing so well. And he's going to get rewarded at the end of the year with a big new contract. Vladislav Gavrikov, I thought, the outstanding defenseman of the year. The other award, here's the thing. There's an award for outstanding defenseman, and then there's an award for a best defensive player. So they're very similar, I guess, but for me, I thought the best defensive player, and we're just talking defense on the Kings, and you could have absolutely voted for Darcy Kuemper for this as well. But again, I don't like voting for the same player for multiple awards if I don't have to. I voted Mikey Anderson as the Kings' best pure defensive player. But Darcy Kuemper was the one who actually won this award as well. This was the one award that I voted for where the guy I voted for did not win. And again, Darcy Kuemper, very well deserving. I just thought, look, he was named the MVP. Mikey Anderson is very deserving of being the best defensive player on the team. So, but I don't have a problem with this. I'm not complaining about it at all. And it might seem weird to vote Vladislav Gavrikov the most outstanding defenseman, but giving the best defensive player of the year award to somebody else. But I think Gavy was the most valuable defenseman because of the role he was asked to play. But I think Mikey Anderson is probably the best defensive defenseman on the LA Kings. But again, there were several people. I mean, look, Gavrikov would have been a good winner. Kuemper, who won, was a fine selection. I went with Mikey Anderson, but that was not the choice. So those are the award winners for the Kings this season. I don't know how they have those 4 categories. It's the only I voted for it for multiple years. I don't know why they don't have a best forward or whatever, but anyway, that's the awards that we're allowed to vote on. I did want to check in on the Kings prospects in the OHL playoffs. On Wednesday, Kings first round pick in this year's draft forward Liam Greentree and his Windsor Spitfires failed to close out their series against the Kitchener Rangers. They lost 3-0. Greentree obviously was held with no points for the first time this postseason. He and his teammates can close out the series, though, with a win in Game 5 on Friday as they hold a 3-1 advantage in the series. Greentree is still tied for the most points in the OHL playoffs so far this postseason with 24 in 9 games, and he leads the OHL in goals in the playoffs with 14. Meanwhile, Kings prospect defenseman Jared Woolley and his London Knights wrapped up their sweep in the second round in their series against the Erie Otters with a 4-3 overtime win. Woolley had an assist in that game. He's got 2 goals and 3 assists in 8 playoffs. So the London Knights are on into the championship game in the OHL playoffs, and it looks like Liam Greentree and the Windsor Spitfires will join him shortly. The Ontario Reign also played on Wednesday. They get a big 4-2 win over the Colorado Eagles. Samuel Fagimo scored 2 goals, numbers 28 and 29. Martin Chromiak gets his 18th, and Caleb Lawrence his 4th. Phoenix Copley got the win in net with 24 saves. Eric Portillo continues to be out with an injury. Cohen Zemer made his professional debut after his junior season in the Western Hockey League wrapped up. He did not have a point. He had 1 shot on goal. And defenseman Otto Saline, the Kings' top European prospect who just joined the team, picked up his first AHL point with an assist. The Reign close out their regular season with 2 home games, Friday against San Diego, Saturday against Abbotsford before starting the AHL playoffs. Reign right now go into those final 2 games 4 points behind Colorado for first place in the Pacific Division. All right, for you everydayers, those of you listen to watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up in our next couple of shows, we'll have our Kings fan feedback show, and then the next day we will have Kings longtime TV analyst Jim Fox join us to preview the Stanley Cup playoffs and round 4 between the Oilers and the LA Kings. If you want to send an email for the feedback show, and if you want to act quickly enough, you can even maybe give it a question for the interview with Jim Fox. The email address, lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. Always welcome to post your thoughts if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section. And we'd love to stay connected with the show on social media. X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you on our next show. And as always, go Kings, go.